and for Charles Weerts when they wrapped up the title. But plenty more to play for. We've got to work out the identity of the people who are going to take away the 2021 Silver Cup class, and also, of course, the Pro-Am as well. So a lot to play for. Good grid of cars. My name's Bruce Jones, joined here at the circuit just outside Valencia by John Watson.
Morning, Bruce, and great to be here at the circuit. Ricardo Tormo, a new one for us, but certainly one I visited, goodness knows how many years ago it was, when I did a track test on one of those little Formula BMWs. And I was here with a group of kids, probably not older than about 14. I did my track test, and all I heard was, "Don't let that old man be quicker than you." So all the youngsters were under the cosh initially, and of course they all went much, much quicker than I did. But it was a great experience, and thoroughly enjoyed that afternoon driving here. As we now see cars coming into turn one. Really a very good corner here on this 4 kilometer, 2.4 mile, 14 corner Ricardo Tormo circuit.
Well, you were sitting alongside me just now when we saw today's version of those junior drivers, the Formula Regional European drivers out, most of them born in 2003, 2004, some even 2005, so certainly Coca-Cola and ice cream still on the agenda just that little bit. But this is the session for the bronze and silver drivers. Out, they've got 40 minutes, and then everybody will come out to play for the next 40 minutes. But we were just having a look at the times from yesterday's practice session, and it certainly seems if you've got a 3-pointed star on your bonnet, you're looking quite well placed at this circuit, because it was Mercedes, 2 ACA ASP Mercedes at the top, then the leading Pro-Am runner from SPS Automotive in behind, and then a Porsche to warm the cockles of your heart there, John. Julian Apothelos and Klaus Bachler fourth for Porsche in yesterday's practice.
Well, the top 6 was dominated by the Stuttgart brand. Of course, there are 2 Stuttgart brands. That is Mercedes-Benz. They had 5 in the top 6, and then the interloping Porsche, which did a very good job. So they ended up running in 4th place with Klaus Bachler doing that time. So really, what we can learn from that session, I don't know. I think principally for most of the competitors, and probably the majority of the teams as well, this is their first trip here to this racetrack. So it's all about learning, dialing the car in. It's not a difficult circuit, but it's a compact circuit. There is more elevation. You can see just the run down into turn one. It actually does fall down all the way down the pit straight. And then around the rest of the circuit, you gradually climb again back uphill, going up into turn 2. And then you cut back down into the center of the circuit for 3 and 4, then back up the hill the other side into turn 6. And then you end up with the conclusion of a very long turn 13. Very wide part of the racetrack. You're never quite sure whether you want to stay tight all the way around or take the very wide normal, I think, line into turn 14. And then that's the conclusion of the lap.
I liken sort of turns 12 through long 13 to 14, a bit like spoon curve at Suzuka. If you look at the format, obviously much tighter out of turn 14. But what we saw yesterday, unfortunately, wasn't maybe entirely accurate, because there was moisture in the air. It was on the edge of raining. It was incredibly humid, and it did have a few drops of rain. I'm just trying to see the fastest time yesterday, 1 minute 31.931 seconds. Just how quickly we get down past that, because it's a morning that's improving all the time here at the circuit. Ricardo Tormo looking at the TalkSport WRT entry of Oscar Tonio, and that's very well placed in the Silver Cup Championship, 3rd overall. That's being led by Alex Fontana, but Tonio and Yusuf Bohaka are very, very handy this year, and I think they've had a couple of good results get away from them, but I really fancy their chances here this weekend. But for Alex Fontana at the top of the Silver Cup class, he's got to keep his nose clean with his teammate Ricardo Feller. Feller won't take the title because he wasn't in the same partnership for the opening round of the year, but anyhow, there's an example. 1:33.5, not a bad lap.
Yeah, so now got Charles Weerts in the 32 Audi, who's gone quickest overall. He's got a half a second advantage momentarily over Jim Pla in the 87 Mercedes. There is that 32 Audi, so we're seeing a kind of gain in performance. So the Audi, the 32 Audi was, let me just look down and see how far it was away from the times that were set yesterday. It was down in 9th place. They did a 32.6.
7/10 of a second
so
down.
They're within 2/10 of a second of what they achieved yesterday. And that's essentially the first flying lap for the 32 Audi. So Belgian Charles Weerts co-driving, of course, with, and he's backed out of it, I think. No, maybe not. It's just the angle. This is coming out of turn 11 again, dropping down into this quick right left. You always feel that you could have gone a little bit quicker, but the concern is You overrun the first part of turn 12, you get too wide. And of course, track limits are going to be a major feature. Remember, this racetrack is predominantly used for motorcycling, MotoGP. So all the curbing is virtually flat. But the consequence is that if you disrespect track limits, you will have track times deleted.
Well, it's quite an easy track to spin on. We've had our first spinner of the day. Adrian Delina has gone around at turn 14, the final corner of the lap. And just as we looked at Charles Wirtz, we saw him going all four wheels out over those flat curves that John was talking about. Track limits are going to take an awful lot of times away today. You can be sure of that. So, best time so far. We're on it 32.8 seconds from Charles Wirtz. The 87 ACA ASP Mercedes, that was right in the mix yesterday. That was 5th fastest in testing, just half a second down on the ultimate pace. And Jim Pla, well, if the car can go well, he will go well. And for ACA ASP, yesterday they had 3 of the top 5 cars, 1st, 2nd and 5th. And this was the one in 5th place, but Pla, very, very able French driver. But again, this high shot just shows if you sit up in the spectator terracing that runs all the way along the banking at the top of the track, when I say the top, I mean from turn 2 across the top of turn 6, 7, 8, you can see almost the entirety of the circuit. It's a brilliant place to watch racing.
I mean, it is a really, I guess I hate to use the term fun, but it is a fun circuit. Now, yes, this is part of the trickier part. You can see Jim Pla runs very wide, front end of the car not biting as he would like, but he's taken that very wide line and gives him a more natural entry. This is coming out of turn 8 through 9 into turn 10, the right at 10, then now into 11. So the cambers at this inner part of the racetrack can work against you. He's already got a personal best sector 1. He's now got fastest overall in sector 2. Again, being careful on the exit of turn 12, then into this very long, you mentioned that spoon-like approach. And Jim Pla having to do a little bit of work on the wheel just to keep the balance of the car, and we've got another spinner. So Jim Pla will be able to complete that lap. Let's see what he has done. Currently 2nd quickest overall, and remains 2nd quickest overall with a time 1:32.939. That is his best lap, and he's now within 1/10 of a second of the Audi 32.
Right, just worth reiterating, John, this is the session for silver and bronze rated drivers. You might be thinking, why is Charles Wirtz? Charles Wirtz is still a silver rated driver. He's got the title, the Sprint Cup title from last year and from this year, both times sharing with Dries Van Toor, but he is still silver ranked. And obviously, when they re-rank the drivers for 2022, you consider he won't be taking part in these sessions. But good sighting laps for Audi, because yesterday they weren't really in the mix. In the slightly damp qualifying session, the track was dry, but there was this air of greasiness. It really, as soon as we got here, John, from the airport, it hung quite heavy.
Well, it was that heavy, dense air, and of course that's not necessarily bad for a racing car, because it does give a margin of improvement in the aerodynamics. A little bit thicker air allows the cars that little bit more grip, but of course then it may have a bearing on what the track itself is doing. Track conditions vary a great deal from bright sunshine to cloudy conditions, and within that you've got dry, medium, humid, and then virtual rain. As what's Pierre-Alexandre Jean, currently 6th quickest in the Bentley, and he's just exited out of turn 6, that run down into, again, it's this braking area, and you're braking as you're turning, and the key is to try and keep the nose of the car as close to where you want to make your apex.
Well, just the point we've seen Pierre-Alexandre Jean powering that mighty Bentley a lap or two ago. We had a spinner, that's turn 9. It was Alex Arca in the 99 attempt to racing Audi. He's getting all the 90s in 99. He's 9th overall. Had a little spin there. It's an unusual one. It's that little kink, but it's just when you're taking a little bit too much speed. But this is a circuit on which it's probably pretty easy to spin, because you've got so many tight corners. And often, John, they're either downhill into a dip or over a crest, as they are at somewhere, let's say, like turn 6. So it is quite easy when your car's being unweighted or powered down by gravity.
So Bentley just exited final turn. Turn 14 runs down the hill into turn 1. The temptation is always, can I get in there without braking? Can I get in there and just breathe it a little bit? Or in reality, is it better to brake a little bit early and get the car on throttle and drive it hard and long out of the long turn 1? Careful on the exit, because you overrun on the exit of that corner, you will get your lap time deleted.
Interesting there, looking at Chris Froggatt going into turn 1. He went across the red and white painted strips on the exit of the pit lane. Not driving into the pit lane, it's legal, but what I saw in the Formula Regional European qualifying session a while ago, someone just got a little too far and tried to turn with their wheels on that, and round they went and off into the gravel. There's lots of gravel ahead of you down into turn 1. It stopped the session, but the driver's using it, but you know, there is still that risk, particularly if we get a little bit of moisture in the air.
On turn 6, Chris Froggatt in the 93 Tempesta, Ferrari Sky Tempesta. So again, you can see just the front of the car, he couldn't get it in, had to be off the throttle, waiting for the front end to bite, then back through the turn 9, turn 10, then this is turn 11 again. That the track at the apex is just falling away, so you end up running wide. That time got the nose in, but the lap times currently, in fact, Froggatt is actually 4th overall, which is a very good run indeed, on a 133.268.
Well, he's going to be kept on his toes this weekend. He's got Eddie Cheeve, the third back, his partner from last year when they won the Pro-Am title, and they went so well. But turn 12, where you have to flick to the right, so many drivers I think are going to be caught there for track limits. You can see how they just take over the curbing there. And again, at turn 14, the final corner, they're almost all running off the circuit. There's what I was talking about, over the painted lines into turn number 1. And 31, this is a car well placed in the championship. Frank Bird running, where are they? Let's just have a look at the Silver Cup class. They're 2nd overall. He's showing with Riachiro Tomita. Alex Fontana's got a huge lead in the Silver Cup, but it can be tackled. He can be beaten.
Aurelian Panis in the 26. Santa Lock Racing, he's just gone 2nd quick. He's got purple in the middle sector and greens 1st and 3rd. So suddenly we're seeing Audis who weren't performing at the level of other brands. Now they're the first 2 quickest cars. Jim Pla is the lead Mercedes, and then it's the number 7 Talksport Yusuf Pahaka in that car is 4th, then Froggatt in the Ferrari, and then Riccardo Fella in the first of the Lamborghinis.
Well, it shows that Yusuf Pahaka has only just got into the car, because of course that number 7 entry, Talksport WRT, their black Mercedes, was started by Oscar Tunio, so a swap from the Colombian to the Finn. And track time really important. But don't forget, this is a 40-minute session, and is followed directly by a 40-minute session for everybody. So we've got 23 cars out to play at the moment, but in all we've got 4 more cars to join, and the top ranked drivers, the Golds, will be coming out to play later on.
So Frank Bird exits out of turn 14. Now the run, and the camera tends to flatten the side. You see it from the camera looking up the straight. It does fall away. Listen. Yeah, he's had to go down the gear, lift it off, then a big break. This ought to be an area of overtaking. And then you come out of turn 2, then you've got the little flick to the left through turn 3, and then down into... And from here on, this is going to be tricky, a tricky part of the racetrack, because one turn flows for turns 4 and 5. You really make it one large arc, then the climb uphill into turn 6. Still, everything is going to be very compacted and neat out of turn 6. Eventually, then this is up the 26 through turn 6. Then from here, you've got the curve of 7, and then it's that again, that awkward break where you're out wide. Then you want to make your turn as you're still on the brakes. So the Audi Aurelian Panis, who currently still is quickest overall.
Well, I was about to say his teammate Leo Roussel's about to challenge him, but he goes within a 10th of a second. So Panis still on top. It's 25 from 26. It's Santalog from Santalog, and Panis, new teammate this weekend, not new to the championship. I think we've seen Marcus Winkelhock before, but anyhow, he's come across. Normally it's Fred Vervies, yes, but apparently he's been pinged for the COVID, so he's having to isolate. And if you've got a stand-in, I don't think Marcus too bad, is he?
No, Marcus is always going to deliver a professional job.
And he'll lift the team. He'll lift
the
team with his fantastic attitude to everything.
So Panis was a slow lap in sector 1 and sector 2. So now he's got another opportunity to reset and go and make another run. So Leo Roussel, as you pointed out, is in just a 10th and a bit of a second of the sister Santa Lock Racing Audis. Up the hill as we cut now further around. There's Leo Roussel in the sister car out of turn, that's out of turn 11. Some drivers really use the racetrack, and you've got the the red and white demarcation indicating where the curbing is. Then you've got that sequence of green to the outside of that. You're allowed to run it, but if you abuse it, that's where you will get your time. Roussel's made a personal best improvement in sector 2, but way wide coming out of turn 14. Whether that's deemed acceptable or not, we'll wait and see if he makes any. He does. He makes an improvement His lap time is the quickest lap, and it's by 30 thousandths of a second.
So Audis were nowhere yesterday. Top 3 positions in this pre-practice session, if you will. Leo Roussel, Aurelian Panis, Charles Weerts, all in Audis at the top. Then we have 3 Mercedes, Konstantin Tereshchenko, Yusuf Pohaka and Timo Bogoslawski. Not necessarily the drivers who set that time, because a lot of combinations have silver and bronzes or silver line up, so they can swap their drivers around. We just had a little spin from Alexander West up at turn, or when I say down at turn 4, they dropped from turn 2 through the kink at turn 3. Turn 4, the track cups to the right and then to the right some more, but somewhere between 4 and 5 round he went.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of the racetrack that really, I mean, it's not what I would imagine you're going to see a car spinning, but obviously Alexander West had a moment, so we don't know the reasons for that, but you're not approaching it particularly quickly, and then you make 4 and 5 this big, large, one almost giant arc, so you make your apex at 4 and then cut back without really making much change in the amount of steering lock you're using. Leo Roussel, by the way, just out of interest, has now managed to put the 25 Saint-Laurent Racing Audi ahead of the sister car of Aurelian Panis. So good work by Leo Roussel. He's just going out. This lap is not going to be an improvement, because you can see on screen his sector times are down by, well, just what, 1.6 seconds, 1.7 seconds. Now,
one of the things that's important this weekend, we know the overall Sprint Cup title is in the hands of Dries van Toor and Charles Weerts, but we've got the Silver Cup class to fight for in Pro-Am. And just talking of Alexander West having a spin, he's got to have a good weekend, because they're the chasers in the Pro-Am class. The Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini is sitting on a very tidy points advantage, but for Alexander West with his super teammate Johnny Adam, they've got a tilt for it, but they're very well placed in class. They're second in the Pro-Am class.
But that 77 Barwell Lamborghini has got a bit of a Circuit Ricardo Torma specialist, Miguel Ramos. He claims, or he told the team anyway, I've raced here a lot of times, I know this circuit. So whether that little bit of prior knowledge and understanding, experience, is going to benefit the 77 Barwell Motorsport in that particular battle for the Pro-Am category remains to be seen, as we watch Alexander West now making his way.
And the point there, John, is at the moment West is second ranked in the championship, but he's second fastest in the Pro-Am times, and the championship leaders in Pro-Am, Enrique Chavez, teammate of Miguel Ramos, is third placed in class. Valentin Pierberg, actually, though, it's a big weekend for them as well, because sharing with Dominic Baumann, they're fastest in Pro-Am, but they're the outside title bets. They're only just behind the Garage 59 car of West and Adams. So we could have quite a few place changes in the championship, but it must be said for Barwell Motorsport, for Enrique Chavez and Miguel Ramos, who is turning 50 tomorrow. Happy birthday coming up to Miguel.
Just coming into his prime.
Exactly.
Out of interest for those that follow it, there are 13 Pro cars, only 4 Pro-Am cars, but 10 silver cars, 27 cars in total here this weekend, as we ride on board with Alexander West coming into turn 14. So how wide? Well, he's very, I would say that's probably as conservative as I have seen on the exit of turn 14. So the run down, and I'd like to listen to see just where he gets out of the throttle.
When he's consistent, John, his best time is just 15 thousandths of a second faster than that, so he's put in 2 close together. Car 88, Timo Bogoslawski, that was the car that was quickest yesterday, sharing with Raffaele Marcello. They did a 1 minute 31.9. Best today is 7/10 of a second slower than that. That's the lap we saw from Leo Roussel.
But he's only done 2 laps, so he's been a bit of a late comer to this session. And already that car is 6th quickest, so that will be his effective first flying lap. This is the car, as you mentioned, that was quickest overall in that free practice session yesterday. It ended up with a 1 minute 31.931, courtesy of Marciello up the hill, as we watch Bogoslawski now coming into this long turn 8. Can he get the nose in? It's just, you're waiting before you can get back on the throttle.
Yeah, he's going to come across the back of the Garage 59 Aston Martin, which won't help him too much. But again, 14 turns packed into an area not larger than the sort of the bowl at Brands Hatch in so many ways. Because
well, actually, not bigger than the lovely desk we've got here in the commentary booth, where we can spread all our paperwork around and actually work in extreme comfort.
Absolutely so. Well, I'm a man who does still bring an awful lot of stuff on paper. I like to have it, as you've watched me perching on small desks. This is much, much better. Well done, John. So, fastest time, Riccardo Fella. Suddenly the Lamborghinis are starting to show their form. Yesterday they weren't looking too strong, but Riccardo, top of the charts, 1 minute 32.4 seconds. So he's 164 of a second ahead of those Santalok racing Audis, and track limits are really being abused at turn 1. Looking down from turn 2, you can see 2 of those 3 cars riding, not even just over the line on the outside. And one feels, okay, they've got to see black and white flag, car 70 for 3 for disrespecting track limits. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. I reckon within the course of time, we've got 23 cars out on the track. We'll probably have at least 20 of them warned for track limits, if not the lot of them.
Well, I think that during the driver's briefing on Thursday, there was a subject about track limits, and because of the nature of this racetrack, because all the curbing is virtually flat, which is principally there for the aid of motorcyclists, MotoGP and other, a very, very popular motorcycle venue, they don't want the banana type curbing that we see elsewhere, so these are very flat. But of course, for four-wheel proper race cars, as I would call these, that is very tempting to use to your advantage. And of course, the penalty is if you over abuse those track limits, then you will have that time taken away. And what you don't want to do is when you go into the qualifying, which will be later on this afternoon, you don't want to go out on a nice fresh set of rubber and end up having that time deleted because you've been just a little bit too greedy in how much track limits you abuse.
Yeah, I think by the end of this this combined practice session, they should have absolute clarity about where the track limits are being observed. So car number 14 just moved to the top of the charts. Riccardo Fella, one of the MO5 Racing Lamborghinis, up the top of the hill.
Into turn 2. So it's a very straightforward corner, nothing very special. Turn 3 is just a flat-out flick to the left, then downhill braking into turn 4. Watch the hand movement on the steering wheel as we cut now to the camera back into turn 5. And it's all, as I said, one nice constant arc, just a balance of steering and throttle, then up the hill into turn 6. Again, you see just the slight incline in the exit of the corner, then flat out through turn 7, which is just a very gentle curve. Then there's maybe the trickiest corner to get into and keep the nose of the car in. Now that's more like it from Riccardo Fella. He manages to get the balance of the car as such that the front retained its grip at the point when he entered the corner. So that will be a good middle sector, I would assume. I would not be surprised if Riccardo Fella has a purple, because he's going to be coming up to the end of the second sector any second now, and he does. He goes purple. Well, what a surprise.
You called it, John. So he's just got the final sweep through turn 13. We'll still be saying turn 13 for a moment. It takes quite a while to run through this long left-hand, but then it tightens up. Now let's see how tight he is on the exit on 14. By local standards, that's pretty good.
I think that will be considered acceptable. So Riccardo Fella presently quickest, ready to see if he makes a further improvement. 132.4. He made an improvement by, I think, 1,000th of a second. So fractional improvement, but he got purple sector 1. That last sector was still a good effort, but not quite as good enough.
Well, great lap there from Riccardo Fella. But let's go down to a driver in the heat of the Pram battle, to Johnny Adam.
Johnny, we've seen you on the pit wall and back behind in the garage watching the screens. How's Alex feeling in the car?
Yeah, really good. First time for Alex here at Valencia, and he's up to speed quite quickly. It's very close at the moment between the arms. There's only about half a second between them, so it's going to be close in qualifying later on this afternoon.
Do you think that's a true reflection of what we'll see later on?
Hopefully, yeah. I think it's all about getting them maximising the tyre at all times. So we'll see later on, but yeah, fingers crossed we can do a good job. For the championship, obviously qualifying is important this weekend, so we'll see come this afternoon what we can do.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Gemma, and thanks, Johnny Adam, letting us know. And just to point out, just having a quick look, suddenly the championship leaders in Pram, it's the Barwell Lamborghini. That's gone to top of the class on the times. Second fastest is Valentin Pierberg in the SPS Automotive Performance Mercedes. Third fastest out of the four now, Alexander West. So he's got to pick up the pace. Of course, this doesn't count for anything. It's about learning how to get the heat in the tyres, and if they're confident with that, that will give them a big fillip going into qualifying, which starts local time at 3:30 this afternoon, John.
Just looking at Valentin Pierberg, down currently 15th position, but pounding around the racetrack. So Pierberg comes into turn 8, and again, either he's choosing to hang the car out and then make a late cut, or just simply he can't get the nose to respond to inputs on the steering wheel.
Well, he's less than a tenth of a second down on the fastest runner in the Pro-Am class, so he's certainly very competitive at the moment. But suddenly we've got a Lamborghini at the top overall, and also top in Pro-Am with Enrique Chavez for Barwell Motorsport going to 13th place overall. Just to give you a reference, there's 1.25 seconds between the top runner, Ricardo Feller, and the top runner in Pro-Am at the moment. So it just shows how competitive the AM runners are as well.
So Pierre comes across the line. His times are down. You can see that plus 0.7 of a second, plus 1.4 seconds ends up 1.9 seconds away. So no change from that current 15th position for the second of the Pro-Am runners. As we now watch coming into turn 1. Yeah, I mean, it's a horrible thing to say. It's a funny little circuit. It's one of those circuits you get, I think, a lot of pleasure and enjoyment out of. It's maybe trying to race a Grand Prix car or a Group 3 car or a physically large car around in your own dining room. It's very busy, and I think when we see all cars on racetrack in the 2 1-hour sprint races, we'll see a lot of manoeuvring, let's put it that way, because it's important. If you get offline, you're going to get onto the dirty part of the racetrack, you're going to lose shed loads of time and track position. So it's going to be a fairly combative kind of race, or 2 races. It
certainly will. And just a moment ago, just looking at Benjamin Goethe, he was down at the very bottom of the table, 23rd position overall. He seems a bit short on laps in comparison to others. No, the car's done a decent number, but he suddenly went from there up into 9th, which had just become 10th. But he's done fewer laps than the rival. That car's only on its 10th lap, whereas I think the greatest number of laps I can see on the board is 14 laps by some of the runners. So he's just playing catch-up, and you can see just there, John, just not quite getting it right as yet.
Mad Panda have got it right, because Rick Breukers in the 90 Mercedes has gone second quickest, fastest overall in that final sector. So I don't know whether we're going to see a repeat of what we saw on Friday afternoon, where it was very much a dominant top 6 with Mercedes in those 5 positions. But Rick Breukers is now the lead Mercedes. The next Mercedes is the 87, Konstantin Terashenko, the Yaka ASP. Where is the 88? Well, it's down in 9th place. Timo Boguslawski has only done how many laps? Look, his best lap was done on his 2nd lap. Looking to see how many laps he may have done, but oh, there we are. Now we'll look across. He's done about 9 or 10 laps. 9 laps.
What happens if you keep going over the curbing outside track limits? Last warning for the 107 Bentley. Pierre-Alexandre Jean at the wheel at the moment. Got to watch that. Black and white flag to car number 30 for disrespecting the track limits. That's Benjamin Goethe. It's the car we're looking at on screen, but it's going better and better because Benji down 10th on the list at the moment. Just seeing what this lap, it was very, very close to his best there, sorry.
I would like to know whether there's one particular corner that all these drivers are being pinged for, or is it just pretty much all of the 14 in general? So there are so many options for drivers to be penalised, as we were back to Charles Verts.
He was top long ago. He's down in 5th place at the moment. He's nearly half a second down because Rick Breukers has gone to the very top for Mercedes for Mad Panda Motorsport. So he's deposed Ricardo Feller's Lamborghini. Look at the clock, we've got 50 minutes remaining. We've got in the last 40 minutes of those, of course, any runner who hasn't been out can come out, because the first 40 minutes entirely for silver and bronze ranked drivers. And for Jalvi, it's just yet more mileage behind the wheel. Looking for any movers? Not at the top end of the charts at the moment.
We're seeing a few greens, not an awful lot. We've got one from Dennis Marshall, we've got one from Hugo Chavez. We got one from Lapalainen in the Lamborghini, but we're not actually now seeing any purples, the last purples wires. In fact, Rick Breukers, if we go back to the Sky Tempesta Ferrari, and that was doing very well. Eddie Cheever now behind the wheel of that car. Initially it was in 4th position, but as the session has generally progressed, we're seeing times building. So the 93 Ferrari down in 11th position right now.
And just to point out, we're still 0.4 of a second down, 4.5 tenths down on the best of yesterday's time. But yesterday it was Mercedes at the top. Today it is now Mercedes at the top. Now, how's this Ferrari going to go for Sky Tempesta Racing? Of course, as you point out, Eddie Cheever, the 3rd now on board. But Ricardo Feller is a driver who's been absolutely flying, and Gemma has been as well, because she's caught up with him in the pits. Let's hear from the Swiss driver.
Ricardo, cool as a cucumber, but setting the fastest time so far this morning. What's the track like?
Well, the track has 2 nice corners, I have to say. Okay, the rest is not too bad as well, but I kind of like it. It's not my favorite, but it's cool, I have to say. But yeah, it's not the most important to be on P1 in free practice, and we don't know which other cars put new tires so far, so maybe a bit difficult to say where we really are, but well, let's see.
Certainly seems to be very, very close, the timings.
Yeah, but that has always been in GT World Challenge, so it's normal.
We'll see you later on. Thanks a lot, Ricardo.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Gemma. Ricardo Feller just impresses me more and more. He seems to be around for a long time, but he's only just turned 21 this year. But the last couple of years, his form has just risen.
He's been outstanding, I think, in the ML3 Racing Lamborghinis, and you know, a driver that undoubtedly over the coming years is going to make a big impression. Just to give you an indication how competitive this category is right now, they've got 15 cars covered by just under a second. 15th is Adrian Delinea, who, delighted to say, making his return, having had that rather unusual incident in the start of Misano when the Porsche got airborne over the banana curbing and did a huge amount of damage to the Porsche and a considerable amount of damage to Adrian Delinea as well.
Right, John, Sky Tempesta Racing Ferrari with footwork.
Yeah, the
display.
dancing feet of Eddie Cheever. So I keep, every time I look on board this car, the brake pedal, the stroke of the brake pedal for me is just way too long. So we've got flat out coming through turn 7 down and turn 8, a big brake, and then lets the brake just gradually releases the brake pedal, picks up the pressure, then through 9 into turn 10, they cut back to 11, then it'll be a big brake into 11, slows off again. The way it doesn't release the brake, it's not a massive quick release, it's just this way you have a heavy hit on the brake, then you just gradually reduce the brake pressure and then pick up the throttle through turns 12, then the long turn 13. Now I don't know much braking he's going to do here. It's a fair old bit just at that point, then off the brake as soon as possible, get on the throttle at the apex if you can, or as soon after as you need to do it, then flat out all the way down the straight as left, now well away from the brake pedal so he doesn't get that little bit of drag. You know, in the 2-pedal car setup, sometimes drivers don't remove their foot from the brake pedal. They can introduce a little bit of drag, which of course takes away some of your top speed.
Again, just worth reiterating just how tight turn 14 is after that long arc through turn 13, at that point where you just saw him braking and then turning him properly to the corner. Right, the car that's now fastest in the Prime class, Enrique Chavez, the number 77 Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini, and of course he will have experience here, not as much as his teammate Miguel Ramos, but any experience is a good thing to have, or even if it just gives you the feeling that you've got an advantage, and I think that's what Miguel's feeling this weekend.
Yeah. It's Enrique Chavez, I called him Hugo Chavez. Of course that's slightly different kind of politics, but we'll not go there. And Enrique Chavez, so up the exit of turn 6, the Lambo ploughing on currently. That car is 10th overall, good effort indeed, the lead Pro-Am.
Yeah, looking quite comfortable actually now, and certainly yesterday the Lamborghini times weren't ones that made Lamborghini jump up and down, but track conditions really have changed. So again, we're riding on board with Enrique Chavez here, and he's getting towards that's turn 12 coming up. How much curb will he take on the outside?
A lot, you can see, but everybody's doing much the same thing. The natural instinct is to carry the maximum speed you possibly can into turn 12 and try and bandage the exit before you maybe get into the zone of picking up a penalty. So out of 14, again, you can see how wide it is. So there was a driver's briefing, there is at every event, and track limits were discussed, but of course it's the nature of the racetrack invites so much use of the outside of a corner. How much can you use before you get a penalty or your time deleted?
Just an improvement. Timo Boguslawski, number 88. Last time you looked at the list, he was 9th or 10th, now up into 5th place overall. The second of the Mercedes, because the fastest is still the one at the top of the table. It's Ezequiel Perez Compact, but that time was set by Rick Breukers. The Argentinian driver has just got on board, you know, wearing all his kit and still carrying the secret about why the team is called Mad Panda Motorsport. Will he crack before the season's out, John?
Oh, I don't know. I think Ezequiel is an individual, and if he wants to hold his secret to his heart, as we was chosen to do, he'll do it. But Boguslawski, that time was a very good time, set on his 11th of 11 laps. Puts that car, the 88 ASP Mercedes, into 5th position. It's Mercedes, Lamborghini, Audi, then Boguslawski in 5th, Terashenko in 6th, Charles Weerts in 7th, Thomas Tuchel in the first of the Aston Martins in 8th, then Tomita in the Audi 9th, and Tuchel in the number 7 Mercedes rounds out the top 10.
So looking for any further changes, Adrian Delina, who's been up and down the timesheets, he's didn't improve last time around, but really a quick time. We need to get into the 1 minute 31, so a really quick time, but as we heard from Ricardo Fella, who knows who's put on fresh rubber. But the fastest time yesterday, 1 minute 31.9, the fastest time today is pretty much precisely 4/10 of a second down that 1 minute 32.382 seconds. Fastest runners in Pro-Am, still in 11th place overall, thereabouts. He's in the middle of disorder. That's Enrique Chavez, just rode with him a short while ago. And slowest of all at the moment, Louis Michiels in the number 52. AF Corsa Ferrari, he shares and has shared for a long time now with Andrea Bertolini. And he's not at the sharp end of that Pro-Am battle this year. They're the complete outsiders, but it's still a possibility. All of the 4 crews here this weekend can win the Pro-Am title, because there are 17.5 points available for each of the races. 16.5 for the win and 1 for the pole position. So as long as you're within 34 points, you can topple the championship leaders. So Enrique Chavez and Miguel Ramos top by 14 points. And Adrian Delina into the pits. So we're pretty much at the halfway point in this session, and in 2.5 minutes time the remaining runners can come out to play, and then we may start to see some even quicker times, John.
Yes, and what I would query will be, will all the runners that, so it's going to see a change from the bronze and silver drivers to the pro drivers for the principal remaining 40 minutes, will they be given a fresh set of rubber, or a fresher set of rubber, or a carryover set of rubber from the last sprint round, or will they just continue on the set of rubber that the car will have started on? And all these questions, as Thomas Boguslawski actually made an improvement on that last lap. So on his 13th lap, he made further gains. He's up now to 4th quickest on a 1:32.6. So it's been a good end to this 40-minute session for the Russian in the 88 Mercedes-Benz. So he'll be, I think, satisfied with that performance improvement.
Yeah, and it's worth reiterating, this is free practice. We've got an hour and 20 of pre-qualifying. That starts at 11:45 local time, and then at 3:30 is when we get to those very, very quick-fire qualifying sessions.
The short hairs sessions.
Exactly. So best time, still 1 minute 32.3 seconds. As John pointed out, Timo Boguslawski, the main person improving from 5th to 4th last time around. He's just over a quarter of a second down on the pace set by the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes. Dennis Marshall on screen at the moment, the 16th of the 23rd runners. And that was the car that his teammate Alex Arca had a little spin in earlier, the 99 Attempter Racing Audi. No improvements around this lap, but it's really all about building towards qualifying. 3:30 this afternoon, still time of plenty. Another 40 minutes of this session, hour and 20 to follow in pre-qualifying, and then comes the real thing.
But there has been an improvement, Bruce. Oscar Tunio in the Mercedes number 7 has made a significant improvement. He's leapt up to 3rd quickest, and he is now the 2nd of the 3 Mercedes in the top 3, and the Mercedes are bit by bit sort of getting back to where they were at that end of that free practice session that they enjoyed here on Friday afternoon. And now we're waiting to see the pro drivers getting behind the wheel of the respective cars. Best lap time 1:32.3 that was for Rick Breukers in the number 90 Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes-Benz. So 1:32.3 is the one to beat.
Alex Fontana's just taken the 2nd place Lamborghini over from Ricardo Fella, and Fontana leading the Silver Cup class. We'll keep coming back to that. His teammate Fella is down in 4th in the Silver Cup class because they didn't share in the opening round of the season. So this is a really important race for Alex Fontana, and of course he wants to win the Silver Cup class in the sprint section of the championship. But he's also very keen, so we understand, to go for the outright combined series honours at the Silver Club ranking once all the endurance finale is sorted at Barcelona in 2 weeks' time.
Just watching Jim Plough come through turn 4 and 5, and okay, the exit of 5 was running a little too wide, but the way he entered turn 4 and allowed the car to work its way through the middle part of that sequence, then cut back for 5. That's about as good as it's going to get. And just it was nice to catch, a driver at the quality of Jim Platt. Again, look at the way he gets the nose in. He holds the car, he brings it in early, but can hook up on the curb and keep it tight. Now, the lap time isn't going to make any overall improvement on the current 7th position that it's in. But watching Jim Platt behind the wheel of that 87 Mercedes is a joy to watch, frankly, because he's a super driver.
And while all that was happening, Timo Boguslawski improved, but that was on his in lap to the pit, so he's still finding sector times that are very good indeed. So just think, quarter of a second is his gap back to the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes. He's 5th overall. Who else improved? We were looking at Dennis Marshall a couple of moments ago, and he's just moved up from 16th to 11th, so he's in the mix. And session all looking very fair indeed. And for the drivers, after the sort of greasiness in the air yesterday, the threat of rain, I think there was a very little flurry in their free practice session. Today is doing exactly what they wanted to do. Track conditions fair, weather conditions fair, track conditions constant. That is what you need to build on.
Now we've crossed over, the first 40 minutes is gone, we're into the second 40 minutes, but nevertheless, the man who's showing a little bit of more pace is a man who was very quick in the early phase of this 2 session. Charles Bates has not only gone quickest in Sector 2, he's gone quickest overall, a 1:32.3 by 1,000th of a second from Ezekiel Perez Compact. It was actually Rick Broikers did the time from the 90 Mercedes. So where did that time come from? Well, I suspect it might have been a change of one set of tyres to the other. You don't suddenly go purple in Sector 2 and green in Sector 1 and not have a reason.
No, get thee behind me, Mad Panda, was his message. 1,000ths of a second. I really do feel on this circuit, when we look at qualifying, it is going to be ultra close. Bear in mind, a lap just over 1 minute 30, 1 minute 31.9 is the best we've got so far. It's a short lap, it's 4.005 kilometres. And as John was mentioning earlier, that's one thing setting a qualifying time, but when the cars are going to be going around in 2x2s and 3x3s on the opening lap, it's going to be quite something. Now, in the background of the shot behind the Bentley is the white, red and green McLaren, of course, that had its denouement at Brands Hatch for Ollie Wilkinson. And good to have it back. And just remember back to that first race at Brands Hatch when Ben Barnicoat went off into the distance like a scalded cat and built a lead of, if I remember, about 20 seconds. So if he can do the same again here, neither Barnicoat or Wilkinson will have much experience of this circuit, if indeed any. However, that form it could well be repeated here. There is the McLaren.
We're now seeing 4 of the full pro cars on track. Stephen McElmy in the Bentley. In the meantime, Dennis Marshall has just improved further. He's gone up to 8th place. So that's good work, good job and progress. So wait to see what Maro Engel, he's just returned to the circuit. Raquelme, and well, there'll be many more that'll be on track to try and use this second 40-minute part of this 1 hour 20-minute split, bronze and silver. Now everybody can go out, so the pros were held back initially for that 40 minutes to let the bronze and silvers have a chance to learn the racetrack without being dive bombed by the pro drivers at every opportunity.
Well, Ben Barnicoat immediately up to 9th place overall, and what's that, his deficit to the ultimate pace, 0.3 of a second. So see how he learns, but he'll be, of course, splitting this practice session with Ollie Wilkinson, because they both need these remaining 40 minutes to be split between them. So what Ben's got to do is get a good banker lap in, get a feel for the car, and build towards qualifying. But still, we have another session between qualifying and now. We've got the pre-qualifying session, so no point rushing too much.
Before this came here, I sort of had a feeling that this car might be a bit useful. What we saw Ben Barnicoat do at Brands Hatch in the sprint race was very, very impressive indeed. And he just galloped away from the rest of the field, albeit that there was an element of holding up of the traffic that was directly behind him, but nonetheless, a very impressive stint from Ben Barnicoat. And based on that, I wondered where will the McLaren, the 38 Toyota McLaren, end up in qualifying. What we saw yesterday, it was just outside that top 6, totally dominated by Mercedes and that single Porsche. Nevertheless, and don't dismiss either this car, Norbert Siedler, the 163, again a pro car that's just joined the circuit.
Yeah, wait to see their times he's showing with Albert Costa, who obviously would like to pick up a top result here. Albert always looking for a top result, and why not? But so the cover of cars is 2.7 seconds from Stefan Riquelme in the 27th position up to the 32 Audi that's leading the way, 1 minute 32.3 to 1 minute 35.1. But expect that Riquelme car to pick up the pace a bit more. The second of the two Bentleys showing with Nelson Panciatici, but at the moment the Bentleys are just looking for the top one, just further up the charts. Ulysses de Pauw up in 107. They're 21st and 27th, so the Bentleys have plenty to work on from CMR.
So Norbert Siedler, personal best, sector 1. A lot of time lost in sector 2, and that's an example of running a little bit too wide over the exit of turn 12, and then you have to compromise. You're really going to wring the car's neck to get it back online. So down now into turn 14. So currently Norbert Siedler in 20th position. Doubt we're going to see any improvement because his good work stays 20th, well, it's 1.6 seconds away. The good work done in sector 1 was offset by sector 2 and sector 3, and that final sector, I think in turn 12 was where he lost more time. So up the hill into turn 2. So watch and see as he will drop down the hill in through 3. Then 4-5, the first intermediate time comes between turns 5 and 6.
The Allied Racing Porsche, in fact, the two Porsches are together on the table. They're 17th and 18th overall. Klaus Bachler in 222 from Allied Racing. That's the one that we're looking at right now. And Christian Engelhardt in 54, the dynamic motorsport Porsche he's sharing with Adrian Delina, who was out earlier on. But again, just had a quick glance across at the times for Ben Barnicoat. His second flying lap was within a few thousandths of his best, so super consistent, but still only 9th overall, 0.3 of a second down. It's not bad. Top 10 covered by 0.3 of a second. Very competitive at the top. The faster times are coming in for improvements, John, coming in from drivers who largely weren't taking part in the silver and bronze session, as you'd expect. They've got in, they've got dialed in, and they've put their sort of banker laps in.
Well, Raffaele Marcello's now behind the wheel of the 88 ACA ASP Mercedes. Jules Gounon behind the wheel of the 89 ACA ASP Mercedes, and in 114 that's the Emil Frey Racing. They've got Costa Lapalainen.
You said Raffaele Marcello. He responded fastest of all, 1 minute 32.329. So you predicted it very well there, John. So the first 4 cars covered by 0.08 of a second. It's Marcello from Wirtz, from Perez Companc, that's still Rick Broiker's time, and Alex Fontana still sitting on the time set by his teammate Ricardo Feller. But we've got a good mix of car. We've got Mercedes, Audi, Mercedes, Lamborghini in the top 4 positions.
Well, I suppose there's no big surprise. Marcello was quickest overall yesterday, but that time was a quicker time than we've seen so far. 1:31.9, so he's about just under 0.3 of a second down. But different temperatures, different day, different track conditions, and of course it depends on the black and round things called tyres. And that is not Dominic Baumann, that's an Audi, that's 66. That's the Attempter Racing, Matteo Drudi, I suspect, behind the wheel.
Yeah, it's Drudi. He's 15th fastest at the moment, but he was again one of those drivers not allowed out until the final 40 minutes. Nearly 10 of those minutes have elapsed, and one has responded supremely well. That's Raffaele Marcello. Took over from Timo Bogoslaisi, gone to the top of the table.
And Jules Gounon likewise sort of almost shadowing the sister car of Raffaele Marcello, now up into 6th place. Christopher Hassa behind the wheel of the 25 Santalog Audi, 26 Marcus Winkelhock behind the wheel of that car, and then Lapalainen in the number 114 Lamborghini, that's in 14th position. That's an improvement for that car, taken over from Consta Lapalainen. I keep saying it, don't I? From Arthur. Where is it? I want to see Arthur Rouget behind the wheel of that, see where he goes.
Yeah, well, we've almost gone back to the pattern of yesterday's free practice sessions when 5 of the top 6 fastest cars were Mercedes. And now we've got 4 of the top 6 fastest cars are Mercedes. And yesterday, the 88 was at the top. 88 top again, Raffaele Marcello at the wheel. Who else is improving? Gounon, as you said, has been picking up the pace. And looking back to the Pro-Am battle, it's still the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini that's at the top of the charts as drivers are getting times ticked off for exceeding track limits. But Ramos is 15th fastest overall. Dominic Baumann, who we saw on the screen a short while ago in the SPS Automotive Mercedes, is 21st. Alexander West is 25th, and Andrea Bertolini 26th. Still that 108 Stefan Riquelme Bentley seems sort of troubled always in comparison to its sister car, the 107 car from CMR, but they're 23rd and 27th out of the 27 runners, so they do need to get a bit of a move on.
Another car that isn't showing its normal pace is the number 6. The TalkSport Mercedes with Mauro Engel behind the wheel now. They've completed 5 laps. And the best lap so far is a 1:34.159. Now that is hard to understand because I'm just going to look and see where the number 6 Mercedes was. Well, it ended up 8th yesterday.
But they've only just come out onto the circuit.
Yes, they have, but
10 minutes in. But
even from yesterday's time, they were 8th quickest. Okay, they're only out, but they've completed. They're on their 5th lap right now. So where is that time? I mean, it'll be there eventually because that's the nature of Mauro Engel and Lucas Stolz. They will be always at the sharp end of whatever field. Dominic Baumann in the number 20 Mercedes, he's improved that car because he's only just taken it over. So the number 20 Mercedes would have been driven by Valentin Pierberg, so that's an improvement in position with Dominic Baumann.
Well, it's been a busy session so far. But let's go down to speak to Jim Pla's teammate. It's Petru Obarescu with Gemma.
Pietro, obviously it's a busy session and we're seeing a lot of track limits popping up. Are we going to have a problem this weekend with track limits?
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty difficult. Also for the marshals and for the race director to manage all the track limits, because this track in particular, it's hard to keep it within the limits. But yeah, we'll see how things go in the next sessions and closer towards the qualifying.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I mean, it's interesting hearing a driver saying it's hard to respect the track limits. There is no deterrent anywhere around the track because of its nature. So you have to self-discipline. So a racing driver self-disciplining, that'll be something new.
John, you're the very epitome of a man who likes fishing. So, super close at the top. Just an 1/8 of a second between Marcello and Wirtz. That's the 88 Mercedes from the 32 Team WRT Audi, but really, really tight at the top. But right now we're into the final half hour of this free practice session. It's been a good, consistent session as we look at the tail coming round for Jules Gounion there. So kicking it around 6th fastest at the moment. He has improved in the first part of the lap, but that middle part, as we observed, wasn't executed in the way Jules would have wanted with the tail swinging around on him. So don't expect an improvement this time.
Wasn't. I mean, it's down. You can see it's by 0.4 of a second. He made an improvement in sector 1, lost a little bit of time. In fact, he's dived into the pit lane because he appreciates that there was no future in a lap improvement. If you just got quickly a view of the McLaren, as it's still in, it's Ollie Wilkinson behind the wheel.
But that's been a quick change.
Yeah, that's been a quick change because Ben Barnicoat started behind the wheel of that car. Now he's handed over very quickly to Oliver Wilkinson to give him more track time. Ben Barnicoat, the more exposed. Way Porsche. Now that is definitely exploring bits of the racetrack were not part of the plan.
Found turn 15 on the turn 14
Yes.
turn circuit, I think we can say. Just keeping an eye on the screens for Mauro Engel improving. He has, but he stayed down in 24th position. So this is the pair with 2 gold-ranked drivers, so they didn't get out into the session very early at all. They lost the first 40 minutes and now they're trying to make up time, but expect a bit more from that. Exactly as you said, John, when you put Mauro Engel and Lucas Stolz in a car, particularly in a Mercedes, you expect them to be at the front end.
And I would expect them, when the session concludes, with just 25 minutes remaining, that they will have found the pace that is normally there with a number 6 TalkSport WRT Mercedes AMG GT3R. I think they've given its full title. Behind the wheel of Eddie Cheever. Where's the apex? Well, he made it eventually. So I think maybe he was a little bit late on the entry into it. Again, 1.9 seconds down in that middle sector. So a lap of no consequence whatsoever. So he doesn't really need the last sector to push very hard. He just has to get himself positioned now to get the cut, to get his apex, which he does, absolutely spot on. So now, lap past is history, start all over again. It's a reset. Looking to see Gounion in the pits, Lapalainen in the pits. They've all had green sector 2s. So not very much in the screen except yellow and white. Looking for purple, but none currently on screen, which would indicate a fastest overall or a fastest sector. around this 4 kilometer, 2.4 it is, 8-9 mile, 14 turn circuit. Riccardo Tormo.
Right, driver in the middle of the screen, the AF Corsa Ferrari, Bertolini and Machiels. Bertolini's taking it over. It's fourth of the 4 runners. Oh, and he's bringing into the pits in the Pro-Am class. Fourth of the 4 runners in terms of points, but just a whisker behind Baumann and Pierberg, who are third in the Pro-Am. Honours overall, Adam and West, they're second, but for Chavez and Ramos, who are also fastest of all in the Pro-Am class here for the Barwell Motorsport crew, it's looking pretty good ahead of this week, ahead of pre-qualifying, which is ahead of qualifying. Then, of course, we have 2 races tomorrow, but for the Barwell crew, I think they're feeling fairly comfortable on home ground.
Robin Friens, we've seen Robin Friens for the first time, not on screen. This is Maro Engel. We've been talking about this car, but Robin Friens behind the wheel of the number 30 WRT Audi, deputizing and sitting in with Benjamin Goethe. But let's keep an eye, and I'm trying to understand where the pace for this number 6 Mercedes, or where it has yet to appear from, because it's very hard to believe, down on 24th position. And you can see the sector times. Now, whether the team are doing maybe a heavy fuel load run to gain information, or when we've got these 2 one-hour sprint events on Sunday, rather than focusing on trying to go out and do a single blisteringly fast flying lap. The problem is the track work you need to do for the 2 one-hour races is no less important than where you can actually qualify. And as is ever the case on a circuit like this, which is a very compact, high work rate circuit, the nearer to the front you are, the better your chances are of standing on the podium. And being 24th quickest out of 27 isn't fulfilling that expectation.
No, yesterday's practice session, not qualifying, they were 7/10 of a second down on the similar car, the similar Mercedes of Raffaele Marcello. Different teams, of course, but for TalkSport WRT, for Engel's team, at least they know that their number 7 entry, Paul Harker and Antonio, they are 5th overall, so they've got a decent balance relative to the others. But it is surprising for Engel. I think if we watch them more, they are on very heavy tanks, because looking at turn 1, it was quite conservative.
I think what they're doing is what a 2-car or a multi-car team frequently will do, is split the workload between, let's have one car on a light, maybe a more qualifying based setup, let's have another car that's going to use maybe the more experienced Maro Engel and Lucas Stoltz to do the hard yards work right now. I mean, everybody wants to be the quickest car. That's a natural sort of feeling that you have. But somebody's got to go out and do all the hard yards to make sure that you've got a car which you will start with a load of fuel on. And that's when you need to have your car really on its toes and be at its most nimble, and potentially to have a chance to fight for a race lead or make progress through the field.
So Yusuf Bahaka pulling in from 5th place overall, so very well placed in the Silver Cup class, 3rd overall in that, but just bear in mind it's Alex Fontana who leads that for the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghini team. So we've got the overall title is already nailed down for Dries Van Toor and Charles Weers, but for the Silver Cup we've got, did you work out it was 10 runners in the Silver Cup class? I think you did, John. And we've got 4 going for honours in the Pro-Am class as well, and none of the advantages are big enough for anybody to feel very comfortable at all. One slip, and I do feel we might have a few slip-ups here on this tight 14-turn circuit in race number 1, and that can put you very much back down the order to where you hope to be.
Yeah, it's 4 Pro-Ams and 10 silvers, and the balance of 13 are all Pro entries. So not really. I mean, Arthur Rouget currently in 14th is the only driver who's managed to get a green sector 1. So of all the sectors, there's only 1 green time, and that's down to Arthur Rouget currently in, say, 14th position. Tomita San is 1 place ahead of him in the Audi, the number 130 Audi, and taking a very, very wide entry. There's the problem. You just see when you come through turn 12 that it's if you run too wide too early, then you make a big compromise in the cutback to get through the exit of 12, then struggling a little bit coming through turn 14, and decides to bail and come into the pit lane. So Tomita, best lap at 132.955 is against the best overall in this session, still with Raffaele Marcello a 132.259. And that, just to have a little look and see, it's just over 6/10, it's just under 7, so a thousandth of a second, under 7/10 of a second. We've got, in fact, the top 17 cars now covered by just under a second. It's not normally it's a bit more competitive than this.
Yeah, but it's going to tighten up through the pre-qualifying. Yeah, exactly. Stefan Riquelme, just watching him, just gone up from stone last to 25th, so he's picking up the pace a little bit. And he's up to 25th, the sister car with Ulysses Depot in the pits at the moment. So no, just back out on the track. 23rd. So for CMR, or Classic and Modern Racing, as we knew them in the old parlance, a lot to work on at the moment. But still, these Bentleys, I don't know, I just think people, wherever they are, they like the sound of them and they love that raucous sound, John.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's what a racing car should sound like. And of course, a big throaty turbocharged V8. It's got the sound, what I would call it bellows. It's like a jungle beast bellowing. It's a much more refined bit of racing equipment than it being a beast, but there you hear it. That's what a racing car, what a V8 should sound like. It should make the ground vibrate under your feet.
Yeah, it should come up through your sternum. You should definitely feel it. And diving into the pits, so we did get that improvement last time around, but I think they've got a fair bit to work on with those Continentals. Top two cars in the pits at the moment. That's the ACA ASP Mercedes number 88. Raffaele Marcello set the time just 0.125 of a second, an eighth of a second quickest, and the best from Charles Wirtz, car 32, also in the pits. What does feel, with just over 17 and a bit minutes remaining in this session, haven't seen Dries van Tor yet. I reckon he's going to be coming out.
Just what I was thinking, so I suspect now that Wirtz is in the pits. 17.5 minutes to go. I think the remaining part of this session will be dictated to Dries van Tor and the 32 WRT Audi, waiting yet to see him. Whereas the 88 Mercedes Marcello, at the earliest opportunity to get behind the wheel, did so and did it with great aplomb to be consistently quickest both over Friday's running and what we've seen so far this morning.
So the two cars from Garage 59, the Aston Martin Crew, and this is we've seen the 188, the Alexander West car. We've heard from Johnny Adam, and he's just gone out to see where he can put their car in the Pro-Am class. But the 159, Nikolai Kjærgaard, Danish driver, on board. A little bit higher up the charts. He is 12th overall, so 12th out of 27. That's not bad. That's a middle order.
Based on that time from Kjærgaard in the 159 Aston car on screen right now, you would assume, and the talent we know that Johnny Adam is, that the 188 is going to elevate itself up there relatively quickly. Again, it comes down to how many miles that set of tyres. As we watch again, this is the sister Aston from Garage 59. Again with another bellowing. It's an AMG-based V8 that Aston installed in these cars. So it should have very similar characteristics and performance to the AMG GT3 Mercedes. There you hear it thundering away.
Marvellous, but actually, yeah, Johnny Adams sitting down in 26th position out of the 27, but I really feel come qualifying, we could see him in the top half of the field, which would be a real fillip for his teammate Alexander West. At the moment, they're in the Pro-Am Championship, they're down by 14 points, but with only 4 runners in the class, it's very hard to grab a whole host more points than any rival who's sitting ahead of you. So for Ramos and Chavez Jr., it's looking good.
93 Ferrari has been given a black and white flag for disrespecting track limits. So behind the wheel right now is Eddie Cheever, car currently in the pit lane, but is 18th, just ahead of the 222 Porsche of Klaus Bachler. So it is a very tight field. I mean, the difference between Cheever and Bachler, they're just a second outside the top 20. Sorry, yes, the top 18. And you just can hardly blink in that time.
No, you really can't. Christian Engelhardt's just tucked in a few thousands behind them as well. But it's just lucky to see the patterns emerging. We've seen the pattern already of Mercedes domination. They've got 4 of the top 6. They're first, they're third, they're fifth, and they're sixth. But the interloper's the interesting one. It's the 32 Charles Dries van Tor Audi. Van Tor not driven it yet in this session. Probably got good track time yesterday. It's got an hour and 20 minutes coming up, but still waiting for that to come back out of the pits. The 88 ACA ASP Mercedes. Of course, Timo Bogoslawski, still being a silver-ranked driver, went out in that first 40 minutes. Raffaele came out in the first 20 minutes of this second 40 minutes, if you will. So he seems quite happy in the pits. I think you've done a good job. You tested well yesterday. You may yet sit out the remainder of this session.
14 minutes to go, so if he wants to go back out, the track is still a fairly busy racetrack. There's about 8 cars currently in the pit lane, including the one that we're showing concern about, the number 6 TalkSport Mercedes, Maro Engel. We've yet to see Lucas Stolz get behind the wheel of that car, and the clock is ticking down. It's just under 14 minutes to go as we ride with Oscar Tunio in the number 7 Mercedes, coming into the final turn in 5th quickest overall in this session, and he's only just a 1/10 of a second or so down, so 3/10 down, beg your pardon, on the time, quickest time overall. No improvement on this lap for that number 7 TalkSport. So
right, just taking a look, we've got one of the one of the Attempto Audis coming out. That should be, I thought it was Matthias Drudy coming out. It's not, but still drivers running very, very wide at turn 1. I think they're all going to be made to sit down with their team managers. But Marcus Finkelhoff, not just here for a Spanish holiday, here for the weekend to work, and great to have him back in the championship. Watching
the way Winkelhock came down into turn 1, again, like everybody, he's running that red and white curbing on the outside of the entry into the corner. Car just got a little bit unstable at the point where he was making his commitment. So again, well, thank you very much, Marcus. That's an illustration of what I sensed your car was going to do on the entry into turn 1. And that snap oversteer, that was under power, whereas the entry into turn 1, he was probably just getting back onto the throttle, having been on the brake for a moment or two, or a second or two. So why is the back of that number 26 Audi looking wayward, or more wayward than you need it to be? You don't want to have that kind of snap oversteer. It's not good for you, and it's not good for the tires either. So Marcus Winkelhoff is probably running around again, and you see under braking the car, the back end again snaps oversteer. Come into the pits now, drive into the pits. Thank you very much. Get that sorted out, Marcus. Go out and do what we know you can do.
Bit of a shame. I was quite enjoying that, John. It was loose, and no doubt he's going to be lucid about it. But yeah,
that was. I mean, that lap, we followed it, and certainly on 3 different occasions saw issues which I would have felt I would not want to be driving a car when that kind of sort of snap and imbalance. Go into the pits, get the car. It might be the tires are just at the end of their duration. These things do wear out, and when they wear out, then grip levels change, and you can find yourself in a precarious situation as we ride on the 93 Sky Tempesta. So it's turn 4 and into turn 5. Chris Froggatt has to work quite hard behind the wheel. It's not sort of a gentle run on a Saturday morning here in Valencia for the Sky Tempesta Ferrari, but that car did show very good pace earlier in the session. Currently in 18th overall.
And just while that was happening, Rick Broikes has gone out. He's taken over the 3rd fastest Mercedes. That's the 3rd fastest car, which is a Mercedes from Mad Panda Motorsport. He's taken it over from the Zico Perez Compact. But the 32 Audi is out, but not with Dries van Tor. Maybe he missed his early morning call. And all the work's being done by Charles Weerts. But with, 10 minutes remaining in this session, it's probably a bit late for Charles to go back in and hand over to Dries. So clearly Team WRT have decided Dries has got enough money in the bank from yesterday. He's got enough experience of the circuit, and they'll save him for pre-qualify. But it's still an hour and 20 minutes. That will start at 11:45 local time here at the circuit. Ricardo Tormo, first time visit for me. John tested a Formula BMW back here a long, long way back. But I'm really enjoying this circuit so far, John. Again, it's always nice to come to a new circuit, but it's very unusual to come to one where you walk up on top of the pit building and you can see almost every metre of the 4-kilometre track. Great views. I
think I would describe it as a very enjoyable venue. Just to go back to Charles Weerts and Dries van Tor, their best lap yesterday was set on the 44th lap. So they've done a lot of running here, a lot more than the majority of the field. So maybe the bulk of that running was done by Dries van Tor. I know that certainly that both drivers, they would do a pre-race interview for the top of the show. And they opted not to do that because they were focusing so much on what they were preparing for today. So they will have done their interviews earlier in this session. If you look at the Rick Boykers Mad Panda Motorsport and this amazing graphics, I mean, it really is something of like, well, it's like it's not the literal zebra of the field, but it's got the camouflage. That now, when Mercedes are testing prototypes, that's the kind of camouflage they put on a prototype. There's a brand new Mercedes SL due to be launched very soon, and there's been sneak photographs of that. And you'd almost say it was a carbon copy of that number 90 Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes.
Yes, you do wonder how many prototypes get in these sort of liveries around the Nürburgring Nordschleife to test what they can do, and certainly if that was all over the flanks as well as just the nose and over the roof and down the tail, it would be even harder to work out the shape. But clearly a team that's right on it here this weekend, and Ezequiel Perez Compact lived in Spain for quite some while now, so he really feels on home turf as well.
Of course, being a Spanish-speaking Argentinian, as the national language of Argentina is Spanish, so it is a natural venue for anybody coming from the South American continent to use the base. Also, Barcelona, of course, a major base for a lot of the MotoGP, and some of the teams are based in this location.
So we won't have to wait long to go to Barcelona. That'll be in 2 weeks' time for the finale, the last race of this championship. It'll be the last of the endurance rounds, and then at the end we'll tot up the points and see who is the overall champion. A lot of the drivers want to pick up the Sprint Cup honours. Vantor and Weerts have already done that. We've still got the Silver Cup title to settle in the Sprint Cup and the Pro-Am as well. But of course, then we got to go to the finale at Barcelona, the circuit at Montmello, and see who's going to take the overall honours. So this weekend, particularly for Vantor and Weerts, they've got the Sprint Cup title in the bag. They're here still trying to win though, because maximum points in this event will put them very well placed in the overall title.
Back of the races, as they say in the trade. 7.5 minutes remaining, and doesn't look as if we're going to see any further action from the 88 Mercedes. That's the car that's been dominant through Friday and now Saturday morning. Doesn't look as if we're going to see Dries van Thor enter in the 32. Rick Boykers has taken over from Ezequiel Perez Compact. Ricardo Fella in the lead. Lamborghini is on track, but not seeing or showing any improvement. In fact, we haven't seen any improvements for the last 10 minutes or so of any substance. So
two-thirds of the cars are in the pits, including the 10th fastest car, which is it still 10th? Yes, Ollie Wilkinson brought in the Jota McLaren. We'd love to see more McLarens in this championship, and certainly when there are twists, they go incredibly well. And around 14 twists around 4 kilometres here, 4.005. It seemed to work very well indeed. Johnny Adam, we thought we'd keep an eye on where he was going. He's probably got the oldest tyres of the lot, but I wanted to see what he could do, because he's obviously got to help his teammate Alexander West as they go for Pro-Am honours. But Johnny very much the pro in that lineup. And last weekend you were down at the Goodwood Revival, so was I, and he was paired in a little blue Mini, wasn't he?
I saw him down there. It was a very fine weekend, as is always the way. And again, the back end of the Aston just fidgets on acceleration out of turn 6. As Johnny Adam, I mean, that indicates, and I'm just thinking about Marcus Winkelhock, I suspect that both the Audi of Winkelhock and this Aston of Johnny Adam are on the last knockings of the rubber that they've got on board. So it's all in. Again, you can just see coming into turn 10, the lack of stability, just the car just suddenly a little breakaway. You're sitting in the race car, you're feeling everything through the seat of your pants and your body, and that translates into a little bit of tentativeness when getting back onto the throttle or making a commitment on the steering wheel. So now up into turn 14, watch the hand movement, see if he can get it through. But just having to balance throttle and steering on the exit. So no improvement as that hand drops down. I don't know where it's dropped to, but there he is, back up again on the steering wheel.
So the absolute body language there was, yes, old tyres at the end of their run. Just got to carry them through the final 5 minutes of this. See what data you can put into the bank. Of course, the race is an hour apiece tomorrow. So there is an element of endurance in that, in terms of this is a circuit that will work the tyres. We don't have many long, fast corners, John, there. They tend to be rather slower.
Charles Weerts, now I wonder what he's up to. Wait and see, the first split time is going to come now. So, no, it's 4/10 down, so... Well, depending what rubber is on the car, it's a first flying lap since that car's returned to the circuit. Just 4.5 minutes of the session remaining, so he'll get this lap and another one clearly, maybe even get a second flying lap.
and then they'll have a break of just under an hour, 55 minutes before the next time that they're due out on the track, and they'll come out for an hour and 20 minutes of pre-qualifying here at Circuit Ricardo Tormo. So what they've learned yesterday combined with what they've learned this morning, I'm sure will all go down. The engineers will take a look at everything, but also I think any team chief worth his salt will be just making sure that they're getting clarity on track limits.
Well, number 6.
And I'll tell you why they need to do that, because car 107 has got, well, so we're getting stop and go penalties coming in for track limits, and one of them has got a 10-minute penalty coming up, because the 107 Bentley got that early on. That was Ulysses Depot sitting in the pit at the moment, but again, the other teams will be watching and looking and learning about how much you can exceed the track limits.
And Barwell Motorsport are one of those teams getting a stop and go penalty as well as the 93. Sky Tempesta, we knew they were getting time penalties, so Charles Vatz continues, 3.5 minutes to go. So wait to see again what he does as he comes up to split that first sector time, and 34.8 was his previous.
Now it's
34.7, so it's slower.
Yeah, it's
significantly slower.
2.5 seconds down on the very best. So, but I suppose when we come to track limits, we'll talk about them endlessly, I'm sure. But it's simply that there's transgression and there's degree of transgression. They need. Oh, dearie me! For Chris Froggatt, that is definitely some tyres that don't want to play anymore. But it really is a case, John, isn't it? You can exceed by a little bit, but you still get the penalty. You can exceed by a lot, and you get the same penalty for that. But here they've just got to learn how much track they can exceed. In fact, as you look in the background, coming out of turn 11, you can see the car behind the Ferrari running all 4 wheels over the curbs. Up at turn 12, well, pretty much everybody's going across that curbing.
I suspect that probably Froggatt will be not even bothering to finish this lap. He's 0.9 of a second down.
We've got a spinner in front of him.
The first spinner we've seen, one of the Mercedes.
It was the 89 car, and that was Petru Umbarescu. We'd heard from him in the pit lane, and he's got it going again, but give his full name, Petru Razvan Umbarescu, the driver from Romania.
Nice drop of wine comes from there, you know.
Doesn't it? I thought he'd drunk it all.
First time we've seen a car spin on the exit of turn 14.
There was one that went round very early in the session, John, as well, but the first one we saw. Yeah. So, where else have we had spinners? We had a spinner at turn 9 and a spinner at turn 4.
Again. Just suddenly the back end just snaps away. I mean, that's very rarely do you see a Mercedes doing that type of thing. So that Umbarescu is getting hands full, and I think he'll be another visitor to the pits with only 1.5 minutes of the session remaining. He ain't going to finish this lap because he's had 2 frights already.
Yeah, no more mileage from this one for Petru Umbarescu. The car 6th on the time, 2nd fastest yesterday, sharing with Jules Gougnon, the French driver, bringing him along leaps and bounds, but that little leap was a little too far at turn 14. Still more warning flags coming in for track limits. Car 87, the latest to get a warning for that. That's one of the other ASP cars, the Konstantin Tereshchenko Gimplar, which has been very much in the mix through the course this weekend so far. Konstantin down in 11th place overall in that Mercedes. So into the final minute. Oh, actually, we suddenly have a little bit of green on the screen. Arthur Rougier, you said you wanted to see him. He's in the 1:14 MO5 Racing Lamborghini, 14th fastest overall, and he's the only driver lapping close to the pace. He's within 2/1000ths of a second, 200ths of a second of his best. Stays in 14th place. Oh, well, Umbarescu
stays on.
Carries on. Maybe he's got more to add to his lexicon.
Final lap. Lamborghini.
Well, this is Arthur Rougier.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's looking, I mean, I would say that's looking relatively well planted, but of course running very wide. Cars 32, 107, 114 under parc fermé conditions and of the session. That's interesting.
End of session, one would guess.
I think it was.
Like I was typing it.
Yes.
So Arthur Rougier, yes, he's got
personal best.
Personal best in that middle sector. May move up into the top 10 with this. This car just following around, but anyhow, this will be his last flying lap. The checkered flag is out. The fastest time. He does improve.
Stays 14th.
Stays in 14th position, waiting for that time to come up onto the board. But yeah, he improves. So anyhow, he's 9/10ths of a second down in 14th position. There we are. That's proof, if proof was needed, that times are going to be very, very close on the circuit Ricardo Tormo. And that's in qualifying. When we get to it, we've still got an hour and 20 minutes of pre-qualifying. That will start 11:45 local time, and then the race itself, sorry, the qualifying itself starts at 3:30. Both races tomorrow here in Valencia. Yes, no other improvements certainly for the 88 Mercedes. They put 24 laps on the board and the car was parked up. Timo Boguslawski did the first part of the session when the silver and bronze drivers could run. And then Raffaele Marcello was stirred from the pits, went out on the track, put in the fastest time, returned to the pits. Andrea Bertolini, any late improvements? His is slowest of all of the cars. Did improve actually last time around. Got a huge improvement on the middle sector. He doesn't get blocked. I mean, this doesn't count for anything at all apart from just being a little more clued up as to where they are overall. These are the outsiders in the Pram battle because Machiels and Bertolini are fourth out of the four challengers. Will he move off the final position on the timing sheets? He's 27th going across the finish line. He stays in 27th position, does improve his time. So all the cars covered by 2 seconds.
Two surprises to me. One on Maro Engel, number 6 Mercedes, down at 24th. One 25th position, the 188 Aston Martin, Johnny Adams' car, we saw there was a bit of a handful, but Maro Engel in the number 6 TalkSport Mercedes, we do not understand. We believe, we think, we're speculating maybe they're running with race fuel pretty much through that session. They did, Maro Engel did their lap on lap 7 and Johnny Adams did his lap, well, that was the car's lap on lap 9. And Aston did 39 laps. Maro Engel, that Mercedes, only did 10 laps because they went out after the first 40 minutes. Nevertheless, a very few number of laps for that potential race-winning car.
Yeah, came good at Brands Hatch. That was the previous round of the Sprint Cup. I'm sure the pace is there, but it seems very well masked at the moment. But either there was no, they could only run in the second 40 minutes, but even so, 10 laps. You'd have thought they could have gotten a few more than that, but you thought they might have banged in a quick one as well. But maybe TalkSport WRT are very comfortable with them. We know they always race well, and they will sort themselves out in the pre-qualifying period. But ACA ASP, they were fastest in practice. They're now fastest in this free practice session. And it's the 88 car, the sister car, running wide off the circuit there. Slotting its way back in. So the last 2 cars coming into the pit lane at the end of that free practice session. Yesterday it was Mercedes at the top. Today it's still Mercedes at the top, but Audi in second place. The championship already in their pocket. The 32 crew, Charles Weerts and his teammate Dries van Tor, who hasn't been seen out in the car yet this morning. So playing it cool, playing it calm. But let's take a look at the order at the end. The ACA ASP number 88 Mercedes, top of the charts, 1 minute 32.256 seconds. That's 3/10 down on the fastest time. That car set yesterday. Best of the Audis, the Sprint Cup champions for 2020 and 2021. Weerts and Van Tor, just an 1/8 of a second down and just a 1,000th of a second faster than the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes. Rick Breukers set that time early on, sharing with Ezekiel Perez Companc. Then Ricardo Feller and Alex Fontana up into 4th place in their Lamborghini. 27 cars went out to play, 2 seconds covered them all at the end of that time on the circuit. We've had an hour and 20 down. We've got an hour and 20 minutes to come very soon indeed, starting in just over 50 minutes from now. And then we'll come out this afternoon at 3:30 for quick fire qualifying to set the grid for the first of tomorrow's 2 races. So work going on down on the cars, but it really is a quick turnaround, John, and then little spins. That's the 88 car. That was the fastest of all being cleaned up, but they parked it early because they wanted to maximise the time before they go out for the next session. But with 2 sessions done, free practice yesterday, free practice today, it's fastest in both. So looking very good for the crew that really had all the bad luck coming their way at Brands Hatch. But right from the beginning, it was start of the session with Dynamic Motorsport going out very early on. Good to have Adrian Delina back. He was one of the early spinners. Dominic Baumann and Valentin Pierberg getting valuable time in their car as they work their way towards a tilt at the Silver Cup honours. Sorry, the Pro-Am honours. Charles Weerts came out early on, put in some very quick times indeed. And unfortunately, a little spin for the 99 sister car going round on Alex Arca. The 107 Bentley trying to pick up the pace, but yesterday it was all about the Mercedes. Today it was the Lamborghinis coming into the mix. Chris Froggatt and Eddie Cheever paired again. They won the Pro-Am Championship last year, and back reunited with this final sprint round of 2021. The Valencia circuit was grey, humid yesterday. Today, much brighter on all the cars out on the circuit. 14 turns up and down the face in front of the big grandstands that line the top of the hill. And it was about getting the most out of their tyres, finding how much the curve you could use at turn 12. Runs into the long 13, riding through that. Dennis Marshall there, he was picking his way up towards the tail of the top 10. Now, a lot of drivers running wide out of that final corner, turn 14. But it was Mercedes at the top of the pile, the 88 car. Bentley struggling a little bit, trying to pick their way up. Ben Barnicoat came out. Ollie Wilkinson shared the last 40 minutes, got into the top 10 in their McLaren that had shone at Brands Hatch. But for Maro Engel, it was a mystery. He ended up 24th in the white Top Sport WRT Mercedes. That's a car that can win races. But it was the 88 Mercedes that was at the top of the chart for the ACA ASP team. Will they be there when we get to qualifying? We will find out.